Curt, this program has always maintained a level of expectations, particularly since your arrival in 2008. Last season, the Bulldogs went 9-3 overall, but for the first time in 7 years did not make the NCAA Division playoffs, which is always one of your goals. Despite falling a bit short by UMD standards, you were still encouraged to see plenty of positive takeaways from last year's team, weren't you?
Yeah, I certainly like the way that we ended the season. To have two of our top players out, and Drew Bauer and Logan Lauders, and have those guys not finish the season and watch our team rally around that. And sometimes you find out a lot about people and a lot about a team when you face a significant amount of adversity. And at that point, we knew we were out of the playoffs. We knew we had our top two guys on the offensive side out, and to come back and play the way that we did the last 3 games, and to go into the Mineral Water Bowl we had mixed feelings about it to begin with, but certainly it was a tremendous opportunity for our team, and we preach to our guys all the time, appreciate every game and every opportunity you have, and as coaches and as a team, we had to embrace that, and it was a positive way to end the season.
Looking at the 2016 Bulldogs and starting with the offense, the thing that jumps out first is that you return all 5 starters from the offensive line and a fourth-year starting quarterback. For openers, it can't get a whole lot better than that, can it?
No, it's we have a very mature football team right now, and I think a lot of that is based on our offensive line, our quarterback. Those guys, as much as we rely upon those guys to communicate and make sure that everybody's on the same page, and Drew to be able to direct those guys, and we've had a limited amount of having to direct those guys. He's been able to help direct some of the perimeter guys on the offensive side here throughout fall camp, and it's been a great fall camp, probably as smooth as we've had, and potentially as high energy practices as we've had throughout the first 14, 15 practices before we headed into game week here.
Last year, UMD led the NSIC in rushing offense, but were 13th in passing offense, although you were number 1 in pass efficiency. Was that a matter of taking what the opposition defense gave you, or was that by what you had in your lineup, or what you guys had at your service?
Yeah, it really depends on some of it's game by game, some of it's due to weather, some of it's due to the fact that we ended up finishing the season without a quarterback that could throw the ball 15, 20 yards, and Nate Ritchie. So we had Nate Ritchie dinged up, and he's a wide receiver to begin with for our last 3 games. So statistically, sometimes we look back in the season and we always aim to be balanced offensively and be 50-50, but in all reality, there's games where you're going to need to throw it more. There's games where if we can control the football, rushing it, and win a game, playing quality defense and making plays in the specials game, we're going to do that. And looking back at last year, we probably needed to rush the ball better than we did on first and second down on the offensive side to set up more of our passing game. And although we were efficient, we could have put the ball downfield a little bit more than we did.
You mentioned Nate Ritchie, but multi-threat guys like him and Bo Bofferding really do add an extra dimension to your offense, don't they?
They do. Bo's always been a solid player for us in the pass game, and has done a tremendous job for us here this spring and in fall camp in the run game. Nate's a guy that we can use anywhere. He's good in jet sweep. He's good with the ball in his hands. He's been tremendous on special teams for us. Last year, for him to step away and have taken out a very unselfish move and go into the quarterback position where he knew he wasn't going to be an all-conference wide receiver when he's playing quarterback. Statistically, it was going to be taken away from him, but it didn't matter to him. Nate worked extremely hard at making sure the team was behind him, and it was fun to see them rally around Nate Ritchie.
Always been a rush-first type of football team, and who do you see leading the ball-carrying attack this year?
Well, I think Darren Walker, Darren's a guy that took some of the load away from, or after, I should say, Logan Lauders was gone last year. So Darren will certainly be our number 1 guy. We're going to move Bo Boffin into the backfield this fall, and he'll take a brunt of the load back there as well. Keith Anthony, a transfer, has done a good job for us here this fall camp, and as you go, transfers take a little bit more time to get them up to speed, and Keith has been one of those guys where he'll have a couple really good practices, and then a practice where game plan wise may not be making sense to him as much, but we're hoping by Thursday night we'll get him ready to go, and so I think those 3 guys will take the majority of the carries along with Drew Bauer. Drew's been a really good ball carrier for us here in the past as well.
Switching over to the other side of the scrimmage, it looks like the first line of defense is in terrific shape, as pretty much everyone but all NSIC nose tackle Jonathan Harden's back. Is that probably going to be the strength of the defense?
Yeah, I think our front 7 will be strong again this year. We returned Carl Finkel and DeAndre Greer, and Nick Thorpe and Regis Henke and those guys up front, and certainly don't mean to leave anybody out. I think we have 7, 8, 9 guys up front on our defensive line that can play and are going to play quality minutes for us. The linebacker spot is definitely anchored by Bo Bates. So you talk about Bo Boffering on the offensive side and his maturity and versatility. Bo Bates does the exact same thing for us on the defensive side. Just a steady player that's made a lot of plays for us, is a lot of football under his belt.
Would that put your secondary at probably the spot where you have the most concern then?
I don't know if concern is the right word. We may be a little bit younger there, but you look at Sam Lynch, who's a sophomore. Sam played a ton for us. Mitchell Johnson, Mitchell's played a ton for us as well. Those guys are going to be starting for us. Devon Blair, who came in last year and, again, as a transfer, it took him a little bit of time, but once he caught on, had a tremendous season for us. So Devon will play back there for us along with Keegan Wirtz. Keegan did a tremendous job for us and has always been, a guy that's going to play 35, 40 snaps a game for us. So, secondary may not have as many starts under their belt, but, if you look at comparatively speaking with our defensive line and our secondary, the amount of snaps they've played is probably pretty close.
On special teams, for the first time since 2011, you'll have someone other than Andrew Breeze handling the place-kicking duties. Who do you expect to take over that valuable role, as well as the number one punter job, which Breeze filled last fall as well?
Yeah, it's starting with our kicking position. Tyler McLaughlin will be our kicker this year, and you look at what a team is all about. Tyler McLaughlin's been here for 5 years. He's kicked for 3 of them sparingly. Times where a guy like Andrew Breeze had to play wideout when we were short at wideout. But he's been a backup kicker for us and has just been a tremendous team guy and has kind of waited his turn, and now's his time. So I'm excited to see Tyler as a senior have an opportunity to take over those duties, and has, in the past, come up with some clutch kicks for us and done a good job. And then punter, we're going to start Cam Hausman. Cam's a freshman for us and has done a good job throughout fall camp here. We had a loss at kicker and punter last year with Andrew Breeze. There's certainly some tough shoes to fill on both sides, but excited about the 2 guys we have this year as well.
The league coaches had UMD as the NSIC North Division favorites again and right in the mix as far as the overall rankings. What do you think of that forecast, and what are your predictions on how the NSIC will shake out?
Think of it very similar to every year's preseason predictions. We're really worried about Southwest State. You can only put so much stock into that. On paper, everybody feels good about where they're at right now, and until you go through fall camp, you see where your health's at, and you find out what your new guys are going to be about when the lights come on. Nobody really knows. So we're excited to kick off against Southwest State, and again, I expect an extremely competitive NSIC. You look at the last 3-4 years here, it's getting tougher and tougher each year. Games become more and more competitive with the teams that maybe aren't as successful against the teams that are successful. The margin win-loss and the points are closing in on both ends, so it'll be a competitive season for us.
The Mankato, Sioux Falls, yourself, always up there, at least in the last few years. Do you see any sleepers? Any teams that maybe are kind of Johnny-come-latelys in this whole NSIC race?
Yeah, well, I think Southwest may be one. You look at that team right now; they're 8-3 coming off last year's season. A junior starting quarterback that's a phenomenal player for them. Certainly, Concordia's got a new staff. They're talented. They'll be talented in the skill positions and talented on the defensive line. Augustana with returning the top player in the league in Trey Hyde. So, not to leave anybody out. But it'll be a competitive league again this year, and you look at you look at our league right now as a whole. Almost everybody in our league right now has either a junior or a senior starting quarterback, guys with a ton of plays underneath their belt, similar to what Winona State has right now in their returning quarterback as well. So it's going to be some high-powered offensive football, and defensively, the teams that can maintain and hold people out of the end zone, create turnovers, are going to be the teams that win.